Good evening. I'm your host, Karen Udis. Welcome to this series on the network of global corporate control. Thanks to DCTV, this weekly series has been on air for almost 3 years. Thanks also to Carmen Stanley, studio producer and director. Audio and prompter is Aliyah Jamari, and our floor director is Janice Rogers. And if you could stop the scroller and go a little slower, I'm losing you. Could you go back a little bit because I'm losing the scroller. I can't see what's on the screen. Thank you. Today's segment is live and is called Checkmate. The last live segment was called Truth. It was about how a group of corrupt central bankers is trying to shape your understanding of reality. It shouldn't surprise you to learn that the banking cartel has been interfering with the information that I put out on the internet to inform you. Last week, in the segment devoted to questions and answers, we discussed the black nobility who are at the heart of the central bankers. The families that belong to the black nobility came from Egypt and have been trying to dominate the rest of us for over 9,000 years, from the time of the earliest pharaohs. I've been telling you how the world's assets, including monetary gold reserves of over 1 million metric tons, other precious metals, gemstones, and art treasures, were placed in trust for humanity at the end of World War II. This trust, called the Global Debt Facility, is managed by the 189 Ministers of Finance and Development on the Board of Governors of the World Bank and IMF. I'm a whistleblower who's been fighting the corruption in the world's financial system for over 25 years. I was hired into the World Bank's legal department by Ibrahim Shihada, an Egyptian lawyer who used to be the general counsel of the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries. Occupy Wall Street says Udis's story is easily the most interesting compared to major financial scandals, surveillance, etc. The American public, indeed the whole world, would unify with an understanding of a rigged world for a few. I'm working with a very large coalition that includes the world's militaries. This coalition, called the Coalition for the Rule of Law, was predicted with 90 to 95% accuracy from a power transition model that came to the World Bank in 2004 from the United States National War College. I've been telling you recently that humanity is in another reality. This has to do with the fact that if a critical mass of people understand that something is true, it becomes manifest in reality. This is a scientific fact that has to do with the way humanity is all interconnected in the way we think. Our brains function as modems in processing our thoughts. Scientists observed this collective unconscious in Japan in what they call the 100th monkey effect. This is because information in the collective unconscious becomes accessible to everyone and is transmitted to everyone. I discussed this aspect of reality in the last live show on DZTV. I'm showing you where I discussed this in the teleprompter. You can see page 8, and in a clip which you'll be seeing now. Manifests in reality. The 100th monkey phenomenon refers to a sudden, spontaneous, and mysterious leap of consciousness which is achieved when a critical mass point is reached. The idea of the 100th monkey phenomenon comes from Dr. Lyle Watson, and he lived between 1938 and 2008. And in his book Lifetide, which he wrote in 1979, Watson had a PhD in ethology for work done at the London Zoo with Desmond Morris, who is the person that wrote The Naked Ape. Morris was writing about several studies done in the 1960s by several Japanese primatologists. They were studying Japanese macaques It's called Macaca Fuscata. Watson alleged that the scientists were reluctant to publish the whole story for fear of ridicule. He wrote that he had to gather the rest of the story from personal anecdotes and bits of folklore among primate researchers, because most of them are still not quite sure what happened. So, wrote Watson, I'm forced to improvise the details, but as near as I can tell, this is what seems to have happened. In the autumn of that year, an unspecified number of monkeys on Koshima were washing sweet potatoes in the sea. Let's say, for argument's sake, that the number was 99, and that 11 o'clock on a Tuesday morning, one further convert was added to the fold in the usual way, but the addition of the 100th monkey apparently carried the number across some sort of threshold, pushing it through a kind of critical mass, because by that evening, almost everyone was doing it. Not only that, but the habit seems to have jumped natural barriers and to have appeared spontaneously, like glycerin crystals in a sealed laboratory jar, in colonies on other islands, and on the mainland in a troop at Takashiyakama. La Santissima Simia film, you can see the link, I'm putting that in the teleprompter. According to Watson, one monkey taught another to wash sweet potatoes, who taught another, who taught another, and soon all the monkeys on the island were washing potatoes where no monkey had ever washed potatoes before. When the 100th monkey learned to wash potatoes, suddenly and spontaneously and mysteriously, monkeys on other islands with no physical contact with the potato washing cult started washing potatoes. Was this monkey telepathy? One explanation is the collective unconscious. The banking cartel and the rest of humanity are now in a direct duel, with me as overseer mandate trustee embedded, as it were, in the board of governors of the World Bank and IMF. The banking cartel wants to put the world into World War III. We've been discussing in my social media how all wars are bankers' wars. We're working together to end the corruption in the world's money system. The United States minus the Fed is how we stay out of World War III. All wars are bankers' wars. The banking cartel realized that this information about reality is a game changer, and they tried to intimidate me the day after the broadcast. And then, when they couldn't intimidate me, they tried on February 1st to simply steal the world's assets in the global debt facility by just ignoring the entire board of governors of the World Bank and International Monetary Fund, whose job it is to administer the world's wealth in the global debt facility. This is not going to work because the coalition for the rule of law is stronger than the banking cartel, and we, of course, do not want World War III. As I've said, we're in a new reality because a critical mass of people understand that we are in a new reality. Well, of course, I broadcast the evidence in my social media when the banking cartel tried to intimidate me on the 24th of January, standing up to Interpol and the rest of the banking cartel, which has no jurisdiction over me or over the world's wealth. And then there was a broken link from the banking cartel. I tried fixing it, and again on the 1st of February, when the banking cartel tried to ignore the bilateral Minesfield Breakthrough Successor Agreement governing the world's wealth in the global debt facility. This would have put the entire world into World War III. I'm showing you what I posted in the teleprompter. And I wrote to Interpol, the CIA, and the rest of the banking cartel. You're trying to confuse people by calling your lies facts. There's a lot you can do to convince people of the truth when something is real and something is a lie, even when you're talking about the banking cartel's lies that have taken root over centuries. One of the banking cartel's agents was trying to spread lies about me in my social media. So I told everyone that this agent was making everything very complicated, that he was putting words in my mouth that I had never said. Finally, I told everyone that I had blocked this agent, but that his disinformation was still showing up after he was blocked. This person was called We the People of 76. After I muted him, and it appeared anyway, I think the banking cartel is defending its agent Trump. This only backfires. And I replied to a person named Churchmark on Twitter. So even now, you don't understand that the banking cartel rewrites history and that you're deliberately misled by the bankers. Are you a shill or just stupid when you post for bankers on my Twitter account? This year, people are paying closer attention to what the banking cartel is trying to hide. Once a critical mass of people know that the banking cartel exists and is trying to hide reality from them, it's harder to keep on tricking people. The next step is to show how much corruption there is, and that this corruption is so deep that it amounts to a matrix where reality remains hidden behind a wall of lies. Clarifying reality to the duped, that is where we are. Examples of how things are going. And I wrote to this shill, We the People, and he wrote, how will this affect the stock market? Truth report probably in a huge, good way, most likely because being back on the gold standard is like having gold instead of monopoly money, literally. And then I corrected them. I said, we're not talking about a gold standard. We're talking about actual gold. And then somebody named Cloudbuster. Also, do you think there's a shortage of real gold on the planet? Is it really rare? Or is it managed to appear so? And I wrote that we have 1.8 million metric tons in the global debt facility. Enough of us are able to see the hidden reality behind the corruption, so that by working together, we can clean things up. You can read exactly what I tweeted to that traitor in the White House 3 days before the United States Marines attacked the CIA's branch office in Langley, Virginia. They did that on the 18th of November. We are now implementing the global currency reset. Donald Trump has not, and the so-called commanders in the U.S. military have not challenged my statements that they are not in control and that the United States government is not legitimate, and that I represent the U.S. on the Board of Governors of the World Bank and International Monetary Fund that manages the monetary gold reserves of the nations. I made this point and provided all the necessary documentary proof yesterday. That was actually a couple of days ago. At the end of the teleprompter, you can see what I wrote. Not a single country or embassy has challenged this. This is very strong proof. At the end of the teleprompter, you can see these documents for yourself. I've just restored the document about how the banking cartel bombed Hiroshima and how Auschwitz was actually a uranium enrichment facility. Watch what happens to this truth. It's a touchstone for reality. After we've ended the corruption in the world's money system, it's going to be hard for people to remember what it was like when the banking cartel was in charge. It's going to be especially hard for people to remember the turning point and how people clung on to what some of us called the normalcy bias and resisted seeing the corruption, even though there was such strong proof. The turning point, when the global currency reset became irrevocable, was in August 2016 and was noticed by a group of healers who commented that energies are strong and chaotic. I'm also adding the statements that I put in my social media on the anniversary of that imposter Trump's so-called inauguration. Donald Trump was never inaugurated because the Electoral College was never duly constituted, because the banking cartel had put a second secret constitution into place to replace the Constitution of 1789, which was foisted on us when the Revolutionary War debts fell due. The second secret constitution was not ratified and was not signed. The banking cartel put the United States federal government into bankruptcy in 1933. There are hackers in my PC that delete what I write. They sometimes put the emails that I tried to send in the drafts folder. The fact that I'm still getting through and telling you about reality, well, that is as it should be. The chances that reality prevails over the banking cartel's lies, those chances are more than 90%. And I wrote a comment on USA Today. We are now in a global currency reset to end the corruption in the money system and to clarify reality to the duped. This story about the shutdown of the U.S. federal government is a distraction carried out by people who are confused about what reality is and by the corrupt agents of the banking cartel. We're now in a global currency reset to end the corruption and clarify reality to the duped. The reality that the banking cartel is hiding from you is that the United States federal government doesn't exist because in 1933, the banking cartel declared the federal government bankrupt. Many people are duped by the secret corruption. A critical mass of people see the reality. We are now in transition to clean up the secret corruption. And I see that we've got actually 15 minutes, and I've gone through the teleprompter. So I have a lot of documentation. I wanted to tell you about a tweet that I called Truth, where I said that we're now implementing the global currency reset. And I said that neither Trump nor Mattis nor any other trader has challenged the truth of any of my statements. Did you ever wonder why it was that I was able to say these things about Donald Trump being a traitor, and he wouldn't counter that? That's really quite strong proof. How is it that I can say these things? Because they're true. That's how I can say them. And as for Mattis, well, if the Marines attacked the CIA and nothing ever happened to any of those troops, you have to wonder who Mattis is. Is he really the Secretary of Defense? Or is he really trying to dupe everybody? It's really the latter. There is no federal government. There's a lot of play actors who are trying to convince you that they really are doing something correct, when what's actually happened is that there are a lot of people who don't understand what the actual reality is. And the fact that I can tell you these things and that I can write all of these documents and nobody challenges them, that is proof. You see the proof, and I'm not going to let up. Anyway, let me finish reading the tweet. This show called We the People wanted to know how this was going to affect the stock market. Well, you see, the stock market is extremely volatile. But what is behind the stock market is that the world's wealth is actually behind the stock market. And then somebody called Truth Report said that he thought that the global debt facility was going to affect the stock market in a huge good way, because being back on the gold standard is like having gold instead of monopoly money. And I've corrected that we're not talking about the gold standard. We're talking about actual gold. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to be taking gold powder, gold which is in the world's monetary gold reserves, and we're going to mint it in a way where you press it very thin and you put it in an envelope, and then it handles just like paper money, but it's actually the value of the bill has gold in it. Well, this person named Cloudbuster said, do you think there's a shortage of real gold on the planet? Is it really rare, or is it managed to appear so? And I said that there's 1.8 million metric tons of gold in the global debt facility. And I know this, it hasn't been audited, but I know this because of the very strong documentation, because this gold was put into hiding 50 years ago. It was in 1949 that this was deposited by Jose Rizal, who was then the superior general of the Jesuits. That was his function, and he had Ferdinand Marcos act as his lawyer, who drew up all the documents, which I've been giving you copies of. So let me go back to what was in the Twitter account. This person called We the People wanted to know the estimated timeline and what signs will everyone see, and will fiat dollars have any value? If not, what financial instrument would be the safest? And if this is to be taken seriously, we need to plan step by step rather than read random conversations. Now, the issue about planning is that I cannot speak for everyone, and we are actually empowering everyone. The way we're going to handle this is that there's going to be, in addition to the gold currency that we're talking about, that's going to be minted from the gold in the world's monetary gold reserves, we're also going to have all of the local communities issuing local currency, and this is going to be by agreement in the communities. People have been asking me what the models are, and I've been putting them in touch with some of the communities that have already organized themselves. Berkshire's is one of them, and I've had a couple of programs on local currencies. So I'm happy to serve as a kind of a resource person, but you're not helpless. You can do your own research, and your communities can organize yourself. It's like a barter system. Somebody's giving me some water. That's very nice. Thank you. Anyway, the most important thing for us to understand is that we are all working together and we are getting ourselves organized. And for me to jump ahead of everybody and to come up with answers is not going to serve any purpose whatsoever, because I'm not going to be creating a second banking cartel. I'm in the very center of the world's monetary system, but the point is the decision makers are all of humanity that are going to be having to get themselves educated and up to speed and learning from each other. And what we're going to agree among ourselves is that as we get organized, we're going to go back and revisit what it is that we've decided and retrofit things so that although it's going to be, we've never done this before, it's going to be very overwhelming for us, but we don't have to get it right the first time. We can just retrofit and go back and correct things. And once we understand that that's the way we're going to do things and everybody is empowered, we can then, well, I wouldn't actually say relax, because as I said, this is a very fundamental change. But once we understand that everybody is in charge and everybody is responsible, it makes us, we know what we're doing. Some of us know quite well what we're doing. And the other point is there are some people who don't want to participate, and that's their very good right. But if they don't participate, then they're going to be leaving it up to the rest of us who do want to participate. And we're going to have a lot of discussion about this in the social media. We've already started to have some discussion about it. So that's how it's going to be. And then I'll go back and read some of these tweets. So when this person, We the People, wanted to know what my concrete plans are, my concrete plans are that we are empowering all of the local communities who are going to be organizing themselves. And of course, we do have the existing Constitution of 1789, which is going to go back into effect under Article 5 at some point. We'll put it right back into place, and then we can, as we like, retrofit and change the Constitution. There are people who are nervous because they feel that there are likely to be amendments that don't make any sense. But once you know the amendment procedure, it's not likely that you're going to get the necessary approvals to amend the Constitution. So we do have an existing platform. We have the platform, which is the Articles of Agreement in the World Bank and IMF, which also have a very important provision. That provision says that there should be no interference in the countries themselves. So it's up to the people in those countries to reconstitute their governments and make them legal. And we're not going to, there are people that have been worried about whether we have a new world order. No, the plans for a new world order didn't pan out for the banking cartel, because what has happened is, as predicted by the power transition model with 90 to 95% accuracy, we, the Coalition for the Rule of Law, that is all of the world's people, we're in charge. It's not the banking cartel. And as I've explained to you, all of the communities are going to be organizing themselves and figuring out how to get their governments up and running. And now I see that it's time for me to end. I get to serve as a kind of ringleader for the transition. Why? Because I'm the overseer mandate trustee of the Global Debt Facility. These are fancy words. I'm just following up for the two main heroes who planned the cleanup of corruption, Jose Rizal and Ferdinand Marcos. They put the world's wealth in a trust for the world's people at the end of World War II and established the World Bank and International Monetary Fund so there could be a co-op of the world's people and we could all work together peacefully to end the corruption. That is what we're doing now. And do we have 2 minutes? Oh, good. Okay, so I've given you the outro. Now I'm going to go back and tell you about what was in that tweet where actually this person called We the People. He was an agent of the banking cartel. That became very obvious because of the way he was trying to get me to get out ahead of people, which I'm not going to do. As I've explained, it's all of the people in the world who are in charge. And I'm just simply here to make sure that that's the case. And I'm not here to put a one world order in effect. I'm here to empower the people. Okay, so let's go back to what We the People were saying. He said, I said, I'm not advocating a new world order, period. Grassroots local communities and local currencies are the exact opposite of the New World Order. Shills attempt to put words in my mouth. And We the People said, okay, thank you. Just trying to wrap my mind around your vision. Okay, now we're ending. Until next week.